we live finally in an era which, again, found at least the least worst of the possible worlds. So this is where I see ideology. Or let me take another topic.
Okay.
Which we are all well aware
I'm trying to
of
do
how
several
serious
things at
it
once
is. Maybe it will even decide our lives, my
No.
God.
I'm not
It's a
trying.
very question of
Doing it.
survival ecology. Of course, it's a very real problem. But I claim ideological mystifications, investments are all the more strong in ecology. Like just think about all this New Age mythology of Gaia, Mother Earth, that is to say, the notion of nature as some kind of a balanced, homeostatic, organic, holistic, whatever system, which then, in a typical secular theological mood, we humans with our hubris disturb the balance, rape the Mother Earth, and so on and so on. And now our duty is to repay the debt, to re-establish
See what I got.
the balance. I think that this kind of ecology should be rejected as part of the problem, not a solution. For me, at least, the ABC, the first axiom of truly progressive ecology, and also the only serious way to cope with ecological problems, is to accept that there is no nature, to cut a long story short. I don't mean by this some kind of crazy, discursive, idealist, subjectivist approach. I'm not saying there is no objectivity, everything that we perceive as reality out there is our discursive construct. No, I'm saying that nature is not what we understand by this notion, some kind of organic, self-contained, homeostatic reproduction which we disturbed. To cut a long story short, if there is a lesson to be learned from progressive Darwinists like Stephen Jay Gould and others, it's that nature doesn't exist in the sense that it's one big catastrophe, one big imbalance. Let's think, okay, we all talk about now these Palin obscenities, drilling and so on and so on. I rather stop my associations there. But that girl likes drilling, obviously, no? But what I want to say is that oil, the problem is oil. Are we aware, just think, what kind of a mega ecological catastrophe had to happen on our Earth, I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands or millions years ago, so that we got oil reserves. That's nature. Nature is not balanced reproduction. Nature is total imbalance, which from time to time temporarily gets temporary, usually balanced, and so on and so on. That's the beginning for me. What's the lesson of it? I tried to develop this in the last chapter of my book, more in detail on the lost causes. The lesson is, let me go a little bit further here in a study of ideology. The lesson I claim, the lesson is that it's not that so-called deep ecologists are too pessimist, in the sense, oh, we betrayed Mother Earth and so on. No, in a way, they are too optimistic even. Why? Because they still presuppose that, how should I put it, that there is at least a measure of stability, nature, natural balance, sustainability, and so on, that we have somewhere to return to, as it were. I claim the situation is radically open. We don't have anywhere to return to, even. There is no standard of natural balance which we should take as the ideal. All we can do is improvise, test, and you can never be quite sure if by doing something you will not, at a different level, unknown to you, cause even a larger catastrophe. This is why, as I develop in that book, Lost Causes, I like these paradoxical results, proposals of intelligent ecologists. For example, a guy in Germany recently claimed that the problem is that nature itself is already, nature itself, by this he means the reproduction, the cycle of nature on our Earth. The entire Earth as biosphere is already so much accustomed to a certain degree of our pollution that if we change things radically, even if for the good, you never know what kind of imbalance this will call in nature. You see the paradox. We have nowhere to return to. Another thing that I want to improvise here on about ecology is that shouldn't we ask ourselves a simple question? how is it, my God, how is it that although we know very well that things are pretty serious, did you notice this strange inability, as it were, self-sabotage to act, to do something? And I think it's way too simply to simply refer to the old-fashioned Marxist explanation. Yes, big companies are, through their propaganda, are blinding us so that we cannot see how serious the situation is. No, we know very well it's serious, but you see what's the result? The last meeting of great powers in Bali, I think Indonesia, was hailed as a success. Why? Because the conclusion was that they will meet in 2 years again to continue the debate. Why don't we do it? Now, here another aspect of ideology. This is a little bit stronger thesis. I wonder if you would agree. My next proposal, so the first ecological proposal for me is there is no nature. The second one for me it goes even further. It is that how should I put it to be very precise, that I just don't want to make things more, is that we need more alienation from nature. It's not that we are not connected with nature. No, we should totally break with this New Age spiritualist approach telling us the problem is our Cartesian technological civilization, which makes us reduce nature to just an object of our technological manipulation and so on and so on. But as they put it, nature is not just out there as the object that we exploit. We are part of nature. We are breathing with nature. Nature is the very texture, background of our living. We should learn to rediscover how we are, like your glorious reporters in Iraq, how we are embedded in nature. I would say exactly the opposite. That's why we don't act. Isn't it that, I mean, maybe I'm here the strange guy, but I think it's pretty common, this reaction. When somebody explains to you, you know, maybe this will happen, global warming, whatever, things will totally change, rationally you believe him or them. But then you step out and you see there is sun, there are trees, some stupid birds singing, whatever you want, and you take it, but wait a minute, this cannot really, you know, you get my point? Precisely because we are, as it were, wired into nature, into our environment, we cannot really imagine that it can radically change. And I claim we in our everyday life, experience situation as that of what in psychoanalysis we call fetishist split. I know very well, but I still cannot, in my guts, really accept it. And this, so I claim, again, the only solution is to alienate ourselves even more from nature, in the sense of to experience how fragile, contingent our natural background is. How we never know when it can disintegrate, it can fall apart, and so on and so on. We need more alienation, I think, from nature. We need to truly denaturalize. Now, this brought me already to the first thesis of ideology also, how ideology functions today. I think quite a lot of it is determined by this fetishist split. I use here a psychoanalytic terms, but I think one should be very careful about using psychoanalysis in social and ideological field. Why? I claim no wonder that many old-fashioned Marxists love psychoanalysis. Why do they love it? Because it allows them to avoid the truly tough self-critical questions. Namely, if you approach an old Marxist, he will tell you, we know what's going on, American imperialism, their mantra is, it may appear that nothing is happening today, just wait for a couple of years when the third world will organize itself, we will have even stronger class struggle, and so on and so on. Okay, an optimistic image. So then you ask them, but nonetheless, according to Marxism, classical Marxism, certain things should have happened, revolution, why didn't they happen, if your analysis is true? Then they tell you, oh, ask Freud, you know, like imperialists are using all the libidinal manipulations of propaganda and so on and so on. That's only a way to avoid the tough question, which is, where was your analysis wrong, or where today it no longer is appropriate? But nonetheless, this notion of fetishist split, in the sense of, I know very well that it's a fake what I'm saying, blah, blah, but I nonetheless, in a way, believe in it. I claim if you want one big lesson in all this, just look at the Republican National Convention, if you did look at it. I don't think they somehow all know that all this thing, change, or whatever they say, that it's bullshit. But nonetheless, at a certain point, they believe in it. How does this constellation work? Here one should turn to Hollywood, maybe. I claim that Hollywood films, especially big blockbusters, are for me so interesting because effectively you often find in them our basic ideological constellation coordinates at its purest. Hegel, the big German guy, said somewhere a wonderful thing in his Aesthetics. He said, apropos painting, that a good portrait of a person looks more like that person than that person itself looks like itself, how should I put it. In this sense, I think in Hollywood you find more our ideology than in ourselves. What do I mean by this? My God, let me just take two recent blockbusters. The Dark Knight, the last Batman film. First ideological trend, I hope I will have some time later to return to it, is, and I really hate this, it's this psychological depth. Did you know see something horrible? I mean, I'm a flat, vulgar person. I hate this, how they are telling us that in the last Batman, or it was the same Spider-Man, whatever, that, the hero is no longer just a flat cartoon hero. You can see his anxieties, his weakness, his traumas, and so on, as if somehow this makes it deeper or more artistic or whatever. No? And I think this is a general ideological move today. Did you notice how, I don't know, when I visited Israel, my Jewish friends draw my attention to this, how the whole propaganda of IDF, Israel Defense Forces today, is no longer this old arrogance of, one of our battalions can take over an Egyptian or Arab army in an afternoon, whatever. No, it's to emphasize repeatedly, we are humans like everybody else. Like you see on Israeli TV, soldiers crying, even I saw one literally shitting out of fear, whatever. But that was their point, like as one of the officers put it, military is not in our genetics, but we are normal, nice human beings like you. Look at us in our humanity. That's ideology at its purest, because it blurs the crucial political question. When I visited Israel, there was a wonderfully disgusting manipulation there, precisely when I was there. All media reported on a strange event when Israeli Defense Forces or some anti-terrorist unit broke into a house of an alleged terrorist. He was the father of the family. The supposed terrorist wasn't there, only his family was, wife and children. And of course, since the soldier brutally entered the house, the wife and the children awakened. A daughter ran crying to the mother, and mother, trying to calm her down, shouted her name, of course. It was something like Sarah also. Sarah, everything will be okay, and so on. And then a soldier, one of the soldiers who entered the house brutally, now in this way learned that his own small daughter had the same name as that Palestinian daughter. And he showed the mother the picture. You see, we are human nonetheless, and so on. This is ideology at its purest. This, we are nonetheless all humans. It serves a precise function to blur the crucial question. If we are, like in that case, if we are all humans, my God, why are you doing what you are doing to me at this point, and so on. I mean, this reference to the wealth of inner life, which doesn't make us only ideological categories, is ideology, which is why, to give you a funny, vulgar story, when, not this publisher, Picador, another one asked me to do this disgusting thing, I hate it. This is for me, at the back cover of the books, usually you have a couple of lines on your work, Professor blah blah deals with Hegel and so on, and then you are supposed sometimes to add a line or two on your, to give a human touch, on your private life, like in free time, Professor likes to sail and grow tulips or whatever. They asked me to do this. I, of course, don't be afraid. I'm not doing this, but just to provoke them, to show them. I told them, okay, fine, put it. In his free time, Professor Zizek serves the internet for pedophilia and teaches his small son how to pull legs of living spiders and so on. It's a fake. That's what I wanted to tell them. It's a fake. It's a fake. Precisely this human touch is a fake. Like the last, I had really to laugh, lesson of how this function was. I learned recently that the guy who will even die now, I learned he wasn't at the parade, Kim Jong-il, the leader of North Korea, opened up recently, a couple of months ago, the first golf course in North Korea. Open, of course, only for foreigners to earn foreign currency. So the leader, Kim Jong-il, was the first one to test it, of course. So it's an 18 holes, 18 holes golf course. You know how many hits he needed to finish all 18? Not 18, 19. And I can imagine how first probably they wanted to put it 18, but then somebody probably said, no, this wouldn't be realistic. Let's add one so that it would be more... This is the problem. So, back to how it functions. That is one. The other, much more ominous aspect of The Dark Knight, here it's really an echo of our worries, predicaments, is, did you notice that in its final denouement, the movie, okay, some of my friends who like the movie try to read it that it's an implicit critique. I have my doubts. At least the story of the movie, of what I will now describe, basically condones lying as a necessary ingredient of social stability. You remember what happens at the end? The policeman who was supposed to be a good guy is discovered to be the murderer. Then the judgment is, if this will be known to the public, it will undermine the trust, the confidence, and so on. So heroically, Batman takes upon himself
Psycho for you?
The crime.
3,
This is
1.
very logic, which I would have been very afraid of. If somebody, this logic of this is the old authoritarian motive of how, in order to have social stability, you need a lie. How the highest service to do to society is not to tell the truth, but to lie for the common good, and so on and so on and so on. That's the message. Okay. Another film where you have recent relative blockbuster. I saw it 4 or 5 times, but because of my son, who likes it, which is ideology at its purest, at the same level as Kung Fu Panda. You saw the cartoons, why? You will say, but what has this film to do about ideology? Did you notice how the film combines Nietzsche's 2 opposed attitudes? On the one hand, the other, that all this sacredness of, you know, faith, the new Kung Fu master, all this oriental mystique, as it were, it combines this with our Western sarcasm. You notice how all the time they are making fun and so on of it. But I claim these 2 attitudes are not contradictory. They perfectly supplement each other. Here is the K formula of the film, where they discover that to become a Kung Fu master, but also as for the hero's father to cook the perfect soup, there is no special ingredient. Here is a quote. There is no special ingredient, it's only you. To make something special, you just have to believe it's special. That's where we are today. You can be sarcastic, you can be sarcastic as you want. You can make fun of everything. But nonetheless, it's a call to totally irrational belief. That is to say, have all your doubts, be cynical. You don't have to really believe. You just have
Sorry,
to,
man.
as it were, act as if you believe. I will now repeat
I feel
from
bad
my
when
parallax view,
somebody's like,
short
you see that indecision,
anecdote which I
and
really
just
like,
like,
so sorry for repeating it if some of you know it, about Niels Bohr, the Copenhagen guy, you know, who visited, once he was visited at his country house in Denmark by a French scientist, and the friend was surprised to see
that's it.
above
You gotta
the
get up,
entrance
brush yourself
door
off, and
to
get back
his
on the field.
house, a horse. You know, I don't know if it's here.
That's how you learn.
Horseshoe above the entrance door is a superstitious item. Signaling the idea is that it prevents evil spirits to enter the house. So, the friend asked Niels Bohr, but wait a minute, you are scientists, do you believe in this superstition? Niels Bohr said, of course not. I asked him, but why do you have it here? Niels Bohr answered a wonderful, precise answer. I don't believe in it, but I have it here above my door because I was told that it works, preventing spirit center, that it works even if you don't believe it. This is our ideology today. Nobody believes, if you say democracy, oh, it's corrupted, who cares, blah, blah, blah. We have it up there. We act as if we believe in it. And this was the first one, I think, to formulate this formula was Golda Meir, the ancient Prime Minister of Israel. It's a wonderful formula. When asked, do you believe in God? Here is her answer. I believe in Jewish people, and they believe in God. So I don't believe and I think that we should read this formula in a very precise way. It's not a totalitarian formula. It's not the same as the Stalinist formula where you say, okay, I only allow all these illusory celebrations to go on, not to disappoint, you even do not need another
at least a little bit.
actual subject who really believes. The whole system of belief functions if just every agent, every individual presupposes that there is another one who believes, even if this other one doesn't exist at all. It's the same as we do it with Santa Claus, no? If you ask parents, they will tell you, I'm not crazy, of course there is no Santa Claus, I buy the presents, but I pretend to take it seriously so that my children will not be disappointed. They believe. Then if you ask privately the children, of course they will tell you, I'm not an idiot. But I pretend, I don't know, not to disappoint parents, to get presents. You know what I mean? Nobody believes. But it's enough that everyone presupposes that another one believes, and the whole system of belief
Brock Chung
functions.
and cat videos. How's it going?
Now let me, and this will be then the end of repetitions, but I will give another twist to this old story that I know I repeated it 5 times in my books. Everybody knows it. I want to repeat it because again I will give a different reading to it. To get at this logic, let me tell you a joke again, which you all know, the old one about a man who thought he was a grain, returning to mental hospital saying, I'm afraid I will be eaten by a chicken. And then the psychiatrist asks him, but wait a minute, we cured you. You know you are not a piece of a seed of grain, you are human. He says, so a chicken cannot eat you. The guy answers, yes, I know you, but does the chicken know you? I no longer eat you. It's a very realistic joke. This is how our ideology functions. We know very well that we are not a piece of grain or whatever, but our problem is, does the chicken know it? That's also, if I may make another reference to cinema, what I find fundamentally wrong about a film which many people like, and I'm totally opposed to it, about the Holocaust comedy, La Vita è Bella, Life is Beautiful, Benigni. First, we have to accept a very traumatic fact, there is a lot to learn from it. Why are almost all really good films about Holocaust comedies? No, I'm not here trying to provoke you to be, I'm not making fun of it, I'm not crazy. I sold this thesis, I'm proud to tell you, at a conference in Jerusalem. And my God, some old ladies with all those numbers came to me and totally agreed. That we have a tragic situation still presupposes that the victim retains a minimum of dignity to play the tragic role. When things go really bad, you no longer have a tragedy. You have something which can paradoxically be rendered only as a comedy. In other words, to claim that the fate of the Jews and other prisoners in Auschwitz and so on was tragic, you concede to the Nazis too much. You underestimate the radical humiliation. So that's okay with the film. My problem is the end, when you are supposed to stop laughing and cry. Last 5 minutes when the father sacrifices himself for the son and so on. I can imagine a different ending which would have been much more uneasy, I claim. I hope you know the film, no? Father and son lose into concentration camp from Italy, and in order to enable father tells him a fiction that in reality this is just a big competition game who will endure life in this camp without breaking down. That if they want, they can leave at any moment. It's just one big game. Okay. I claim
Those guys got a
that's
chance
the
to focus
premise of
on
the
me
film.
because
Wouldn't it be
those other
much
guys were
more
wiped out.
uncanny if
Okay.
the father were to discover at the end that the small kid knew
why you gotta
all
have
the
teamwork
time that
in
the
here.
father is lying to him, but just pretended to believe to make it easier for father. That would have been a truly desperate situation, I think. Okay, so again, in La Vita è Bella, he is the chicken, the son. We can be brutal, ruthless, the chicken doesn't know. There has to be a chicken. That's, I think, the premise of liberal permissivity. We can do whatever, sexual orgies with cows, whatever, I don't know what you do here, but there must be a chicken who doesn't know. Usually, these chicken are children. Did you notice how in today's era, where we proclaim permissivity, Freud is outdated, we are no longer even in the Victorian era, nonetheless, the central insight of Freud, that into children's sexuality, again, it disappeared. It's a taboo. That is to say, did you notice how, and again, I have no sympathy for pedophiles, but nonetheless, I find it interesting as an ideological phenomenon how in the last 20 or so years, the child molesting was elevated into the ultimate figure of a crime. I think, again, it's as if we can play our dirty games, adults, but children's innocence has to be protected. And we find this logic of protect the innocence of a children. That is to say, there is an agency whose appearance has to be protected. This is where ideological mechanisms start to function. Let me tell you a totally crazy story. I know a country which fell apart because a chicken wasn't allowed to know. It's my own ex-country, Yugoslavia. What do you mean? Now that old communist nomenclatura guys are publishing their memoirs, we learned something very strange. That already in the early 70s, it was clear to the circle around the old big legendary whatever President Tito that the economic situation is horrible. And that at some point it will be necessary to do what we euphemistically today call necessary structural reform. It's not like you know what this means. But they decided Tito is old and it will make his last years very unhappy to see the economic crisis. So they decided to postpone the outbreak of the crisis till Tito.
All right, sweetie, how you
So
doing?
throughout the 70s, the state of Yugoslavia was acquiring new debts like crazy just to sustain this artificial wealth. 1980, Tito died. The economic crisis was allowed to explode. The result was, of course,
How you doing?
explosion of nationalism, which incidentally
good
that's
today?
another ideological trap. Please, it's even worse than English cultural theory, where there this story of yes, Balkan.
Hey, look at Danny. He won a lot of medals.
They're still living in their medieval days. If you want to understand the Yugoslav war, you have to know the last time and so on. I think absolutely not. That was the threat of the West. Your ideology. You were fetishizing Balkans into some exotic place,
goodness.
sustained by filmmakers whom I don't like who played this game, like the most famous Yugoslav Emir Kusturica, his Underground. Ideology at its purest. The West got there what it wanted. The image of ex-Yugoslavia as a country where people drink, fight, copulate all the time, a permanent orgy, and so on.
Wow, we
So
won!
what I
We
say is
won!
forget about
top.
this
I'm
old
right. I didn't
nationalist
do
myth.
very well.
The
There were
problem
too
was
many
very
people
simple.
on my
one, I think.
spot.
Communist nomenclatura in
but,
each republic had to find a way how to
I need to
retain
leave the team
its
'cause we're gonna
legitimacy.
get
And the
some
only way
oatmeal.
was by making a pact with nationalists. But let me go back. So here, again, one can say that in a way, one of the crucial elements in
All right, you got your
the
secret
conditions
face.
for the
It's all
country
ready to
falling
go.
apart was that for last
going
8
to
years
hang
of his
right
life,
now.
the chicken
All
President
right,
Tito
so-
wasn't allowed to know. And this logic
I'm
can get
I'm
very
coming.
mysterious.
Hold on.
It is at the level of
About to
this
end stream,
mysterious
folks, and I'll be
excess
back as soon
that
as
you get
the
ideology
oatmeal
at its purest.
deployment
For
has
example,